Hi everyone, welcome back. I've got a new story for you today. And this one proves that even the smallest choices can completely change the course of your life. If I hadn't made the decision to head home on a random Tuesday afternoon, I might still be trapped in a marriage that was nothing more than a well-crafted illusion. My name is Nathan, and this is the story of how a work presentation I almost didn't make ended up exposing the truth about the woman I thought I knew. When I first crossed paths with Carla, she was still recovering from what she described as a toxic and exhausting relationship. Her ex-boyfriend had been manipulative, controlling, and emotionally cruel. The kind of man who chipped away at her self-esteem until she questioned her own worth. He'd cut her off from her friends, mocked her career ambitions, and convinced her she wasn't capable of making sound decisions about her own life. She endured that cycle for nearly 3 years before she finally walked away. By then, she was drained, wary of men, hesitant to trust, and constantly on guard. She had temporarily moved back in with her parents, trying to put her graphic design business back together, while also piecing her confidence back into place. When we started talking, I could sense her defenses immediately. She wasn't interested in even the idea of dating. Every conversation came with caution, like she was waiting for me to show my true colors. Waiting for the moment I would reveal some hidden agenda, just like her ex had. When I asked for her number, she shut me down politely, saying she wasn't ready. When I suggested grabbing another coffee just as friends, she explained she wasn't looking for anything that could complicate her healing process. But there was something about her that drew me in. I wanted her to see that not all men were like the one who had hurt her. I didn't push or pressure her. Instead, I tried to show her through consistent actions that I had no interest in controlling or changing her. I'd stop by the coffee shop she liked, asking about her projects and listening to her frustrations with clients. Not to offer solutions, but just to be there. I wanted her to know I respected her independence and her boundaries. Eventually, she gave me her number, and we kept in touch. Little by little, Carla began to relax around me. Over the following months, she started to share pieces of herself she had kept hidden behind walls. Memories from her childhood, hopes for her design business, even fears about trusting anyone again. Slowly, those walls came down, and she realized I wasn't trying to manipulate her, but to actually know her. She began to see that my concern was for her happiness, not for what she could give me in return. About 4 months in, she finally let me into her heart. We began dating, and it felt like I had won something priceless. Carla was brilliant, creative, independent, and so beautiful that I sometimes caught myself staring just to believe she was really with me. She was rebuilding her life with determination and resilience, and I admired that deeply. She told me often that I made her feel safe and appreciated in ways she had never known before, and she said our relationship had redefined love for her. A year later, with encouragement from both our families, we were married in a simple ceremony. The timing felt perfect, long enough to know each other inside and out, but not so long that we were stuck in routine. She seemed healed, ready to move forward with someone she could trust, and I was ready to build a life with the woman I believed shared my values of loyalty and honesty. For me, Carla was everything. She was the person I wanted to come home to with news of a promotion, the one I could share random thoughts with in the middle of the night, the one I wanted beside me when I dreamed of the future. I structured my life to make sure I had time for her, balancing my work as a marketing analyst with being present at home. Most nights I was home by 6. We'd cook dinner together, watch movies, or just talk about our days. For the first 3 years, I thought our marriage was close to perfect. We had plans to start a family soon, and I truly believed our bond was built to last a lifetime. And then came that Tuesday afternoon. A day that began as any other, but ended up tearing apart everything I thought I knew. That morning, I was focused on one thing: a huge presentation for potential clients scheduled at 3 o'clock. I had spent weeks preparing charts, projections, and a polished proposal. All my work was saved on my flash drive, the one I carried everywhere. Around 1 o'clock, as I gathered my materials, I realized the flash drive wasn't in my bag. I tore through my office, my desk, my jacket, my briefcase, but it wasn't there. Then it hit me. The night before, I had been fine-tuning the presentation at home. I must have left the drive plugged into the desktop in my home office. I didn't bother calling Carla. I figured I'd be in and out within minutes. My plan was simple: drive home, grab the flash drive, and get back with plenty of time before the meeting. It was a quick trip, 40 minutes at most. My only concern was the presentation. At least, that's what I thought when I pulled onto our street that afternoon. When I pulled up to my street, I noticed a car parked right in front of my house. It was a black SUV I didn't recognize, and I knew for sure it didn't belong to anyone I was familiar with. Instead of driving straight into my driveway like I usually did, I parked a little ways down, uneasy but trying to brush it off. Maybe Carla had a visitor, I thought. She sometimes had clients over for work or met friends during the day. I walked to the door, keys in hand, not giving it much thought beyond that. But the moment I stepped into the living room, my entire world came to a halt. What I saw didn't make sense at first. Carla was on the sofa, passionately kissing a man I had never seen before. Their clothes were strewn across the floor, tossed carelessly around the room that was supposed to be our safe space, our home. For a second, my body refused to move. My brain couldn't process what my eyes were taking in. This wasn't a friendly catch-up. This wasn't work. This was betrayal, raw, undeniable betrayal. The woman I had promised my life to, the woman I had helped heal after her last broken relationship, was cheating on me in the middle of our living room. When they realized I was standing there, both of them jerked apart in panic. The man scrambled to grab his shirt while Carla clutched at her clothes, fumbling to cover herself. They looked startled, like thieves caught in the act. Carla started stammering, insisting it wasn't what it looked like, that she hadn't meant for it to happen, begging me to let her explain. But my throat felt sealed shut. Not a word would come out. Instead, I turned away, walked down the hall into my office, and pulled the flash drive from my computer. The only reason I'd even come home that afternoon. Without glancing back at her or the stranger, I slid it into my pocket, walked out the door and drove off. The rest of the day was a blur. At the office, I felt like I was moving through fog. I sat through my presentation, clicking through slides and answering questions, but I wasn't really there. Every time I blinked, I saw that image again, Carla with him on our sofa in our home. My boss kept giving me questioning looks, clearly noticing something was wrong, but he didn't bring it up after the clients left. When 6 o'clock rolled around, I couldn't bring myself to go home. The thought of facing Carla, of hearing her excuses, felt unbearable. So I stayed. I buried myself in emails, in projects that didn't matter, in anything that would keep me at my desk. Hours slipped by unnoticed until my boss appeared, ready to head out for the night. Most of the office was empty, but I was still sitting there, staring blankly at my screen. He didn't ask. He just said firmly, "Nathan, come with me." Something in his tone told me not to argue. I shut everything down, grabbed my jacket, and followed him out. We got into our separate cars, and he led me to a small, quiet bar about 10 minutes away. It was the kind of place where you could actually hear yourself think. We sat in a back corner with drinks in front of us. He leaned forward and asked directly what had happened, because it was obvious to him that my entire demeanor had changed between morning and afternoon. His concern broke through the wall I had tried to build, and I finally let it all spill out. I told him everything. How I'd gone home for a flash drive and found Carla wrapped around another man. How they'd jumped apart when they saw me. How she begged me to believe it wasn't what it looked like. I confessed how much I had loved her. How I'd given her my trust and patience after everything she'd endured with her abusive ex. How I thought we were solid, that our future was safe. And now, it felt like my whole world had been ripped apart. He didn't interrupt or give me quick advice. He just listened, really listened, while I poured it all out, nodding here and there to show he understood. Once I had emptied everything I could, he finally asked me the question that shook me. What did I want to do next? Was I thinking about trying to fix it? Divorce? Or was I still too lost to know? All I could do was admit the truth. I didn't know. I hadn't been able to think past the moment I walked into that living room. My mind was still frozen there. That's when he reminded me of something I hadn't considered. He told me no matter how much Carla had shattered me, I was still the one in control of my own life. I could let this define me, destroy me, or I could decide what came next and commit to that choice, however painful it might be. Then he shared something of his own. Years ago, He'd been deeply in love with someone, a woman he thought he'd marry. He was ready to propose, ready to build a life with her, until she betrayed him too. It wasn't marriage, but it cut just as deeply. And yet, he had found a way to move forward. Hearing that didn't take my pain away, but for the first time all day, I felt like maybe I wasn't drowning alone. When I asked him if that betrayal was the reason he'd never gone through with marriage, he nodded and admitted it was true. He told me he had never been able to move past that wound, that it had permanently scarred his ability to trust anyone deeply enough to take such a step again. But he also made it clear that he wasn't telling me this to convince me to follow his path, or to give up on love altogether. What he wanted me to see was that my choices were mine alone. The power to either stay frozen in my pain, or to rise and start moving forward rested with me. I could let the betrayal define the rest of my life, or I could take control and decide what kind of future I wanted. We sat together for nearly another hour, sharing drinks and diving into long conversations about love, betrayal, and how hard it is to open up to someone after they've destroyed your trust. He opened up more about his past, sharing how his own heartbreak had shaped the way he approached relationships over the years. By the time we finally walked out to our separate cars, I felt a surprising sense of gratitude. My boss didn't have to spend his evening listening to me, but he did. His willingness to talk with me and share his wisdom gave me a clarity I hadn't had all day. When I got home, Carla was waiting for me in the living room, prepared with a long speech. She said the affair had been a mistake, something unplanned that spiraled out of control. She told me the man was her personal trainer, someone she had grown close to while working on her fitness goals. That friendship, she claimed, had slowly crossed into dangerous territory, and the afternoon I walked in on them was, according to her, the very first time anything physical had happened. She swore she loved me, that she never wanted to throw away our marriage, and that she would do whatever it took to rebuild my trust. I couldn't bring myself to say a single word in response. Nothing felt adequate. The weight of my emotions was too much, and I knew if I opened my mouth, I might unleash anger that would make things worse. So I stayed silent. Over the next few days, I kept my distance. I ignored her attempts to talk, didn't acknowledge her apologies, and refused to let her explanations sink in. I slept in the guest room, left for work before she woke, came home late, and behaved as though she no longer existed in my world, because in truth she didn't. I needed to think clearly, without being swayed by her emotional pleas. Within a short time, I reached out to a divorce attorney and began the process of legally ending our marriage. Because we didn't have children and had only been married a short while, the process was simple. Carla didn't contest anything, or try to delay the inevitable. From the beginning to the end, I knew there was no possible way I could forgive her. The image of her with another man in our living room, the place that was supposed to be sacred to us, was too vivid, too painful, too humiliating. That moment was seared into my mind, and the thought of how long it might have been happening, or how many times, gnawed at me every day until the divorce was finalized. Even now, I still believe in love. I still think it's possible to find someone loyal, someone worthy of trust. But I know one thing with certainty. I'll never again stay with someone who betrays me in my own home, and then tries to minimize it as a mistake. My boss's advice that night was what saved me from making the wrong decision. Without his words, I might have tried to reconcile, might have wasted months or even years on someone who had already shown me who she really was. Some betrayals are too deep to forgive, and some people don't deserve the chance to try again. Oddly enough, I'm thankful for that forgotten flash drive. If I hadn't needed to return home that afternoon, I might have gone on living in ignorance, blind to the truth. That day, though it felt like the worst day of my life, was actually the turning point that set me free. It made me realize that actions speak louder than any apology or promise. Carla could say she was sorry 1,000 times, but what she did showed me who she was when no one was watching. That's the person I would have spent my life with, not the version she pretended to be when I was around. Now I'm rebuilding. I'm not bitter, but I am more careful. I see red flags I might have ignored before. I know the value of trust and loyalty in a way I didn't before. My boss has become more than just a boss. He's a mentor, a friend, someone who guided me through one of the hardest chapters of my life. I'll always be thankful for his honesty and compassion during those nights, when when everything felt dark. The lesson I've taken with me is simple. When people show you their true selves, believe them. Carla showed me hers, and as painful as it was, I'm better off for having seen it. My marriage to her was short-lived, but it left me with a lasting understanding of what I need in a partner, and what I will never tolerate again. Time has given me perspective and peace, reassuring me that leaving quickly was the right choice. That small, unexpected moment with a flash drive altered the course of my life. It closed the door on a marriage built on deception, and opened the way toward a future where I can give my love and commitment to someone who actually deserves it.